Hello, everybody. Welcome.
Hi, we are
We're
live.
live again.
Welcome all. I see we have a few people that already joined us, and we have Cody as our moderator. Thank you, Cody. We have Sean, Angela, Michelle, and keep saying hi to us and let us know where you're from.
Yes.
I'm Ari. I'm in San Francisco, and I'm the Adobe Fonts library manager. So I work with all of our Foundry partners and work on all the fonts that we add to our collection for all of you to use. And
I'm
Ben,
Ben. I'm in Brooklyn. I work on things like the stream and other content. If you've seen any videos explaining how Adobe Fonts works, you've probably heard this voice before. So I did that for a long time, and I was in support previously before that, answering all of your questions and helping you get started with Adobe Fonts for many years. So hoping to bring some of that knowledge today. If you have any questions about Adobe Fonts or fonts in general, Ari and I can help. And definitely let us know where you're from. We have a guest from Portugal today, which is very exciting. So that'll be awesome. And yeah, thank you for having us. Thank you for joining us.
yeah, we have Sarah's from Florida, Sean is from Germany, Tessa's from the
So
Netherlands,
cool.
Carol is also from Florida. And then we have the Chico Studio from Porto, Portugal. I'm guessing they're friends of our guest, or maybe they will become friends today. All right. So, should we jump into a question for everybody?
Yes, quick audience poll. Get a sense of where everyone's at with the topic today.
Yeah. So, you can answer by using one of these numbers. So, have you tried using variable fonts? One is yes and so cool. Two is yes, but I need to explore more. Three is no, but excited to try them out. And then four is what now? And all four are the right answer.
Yes.
We just want to get a poll. We're going to be talking about font formats. So it's one of the font formats that will come up today.
Yes, and no wrong answers. Even if it's variable, what now? It's that's good for us to know, so that we can answer some questions about that. And feel free to ask about that. We're going to be talking about all kinds of font format stuff, but variable fonts will definitely play a role. So
Yeah.
so let us
There's
know.
a big mix of answers.
Yeah, there is.
Mike says five. Come on, Mike. You're
My.
always trying to stir things up. Um, but yeah, I think there's a really wide variety of experience. A lot of threes, which is great because we're going to be showing you why this font format is interesting and what you can do. So you're perfect guests for us.
Awesome. Before we do that, we're going to highlight something you may or may not know about on the Adobe Fonts website that we just want to bring your attention to. So take it away, Ari.
All right. I can share my screen and share a feature of our website, which is featured Foundries. So a lot of you have gone to the Adobe Fonts website, I'm guessing, and browsed fonts, activated fonts, and I just wanted to show, if you click on the Foundries tab here on the top, you will see this curated collection we have added to showcase our Foundry partners. And you can get a hint of who our guest is by seeing what the first one is here. And through this page, you can look at the top that are featured, or you can look through our whole directory, which shows their little logos, shows where they're based, and gives you a sense, even before you click through, of a little more about the Foundry. And these are all of the designers that have contributed to the Adobe Fonts library and given us their fonts to license for you to use. So for example, if I wanted to explore more about NDISCOVER, I can either click on Visit Foundry and go to their Foundry page, or I can click through these images really quickly and see which fonts I'm interested in seeing. and just visit that family page instantly. So for example, if I want to go to Nazare, I click on there. It takes me to that family page. Oh, now it's telling me to sign in. Oops, no, never mind. We'll go back to, okay. Now it's taking me back. Okay. It's always a roller coaster when you're live. So then it takes you to that family page, and on the family page, you can find more images that showcase the typeface. You can type in whatever sample text you want and just see what it looks like in all of the weights of the typeface. You can see fonts that are like Nazare, that look similar. You can see fonts that pair well with it. So there's tons of information, even just the description that the designer has contributed to us and told us a little bit more about it. And then, of course, the designer and the Foundry, even his Instagram page. So just from this one page, you can discover so much. And then if you go to the Foundry page, there's even more, and you can see all of the typefaces that this specific Foundry has designed. And it's just a great way to explore, you know, if you like something that you've started using and you want to see more from that designer, they might have the same kind of DNA that goes through most of their fonts or the same sensibility. And going to their Foundry page will help you explore that.
Yeah, and it's a good way to, if you have a favorite or you have something that's kind of one of your go-tos, but you kind of want to try other stuff out, chances are that designer hasn't created that same exact font, you know, slightly different many, many times. But that sensibility, like Ari was saying, will give you a kind of a window into typefaces you probably wouldn't stumble across otherwise. So it's a great resource for finding fonts you wouldn't have seen.
Speaking of favorites, I can favorite this family so that I can find it later. So without further ado, I think we can introduce our guest today and jump into our topic. We are talking to Natanael Gama of NDISCOVER, who is a Portuguese type designer and type educator, and joining us from across the oceans today.
Excellent. And here we are. Natanael, welcome. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us.
Hey.
Hello.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Looking forward to the presentation. Really quick, I want to say hi to Annika, hi to Mike. And Murray asked, how would I know what fonts are variable? Now, I don't know if we need to dive into that right now. Maybe we can answer that at the end, but just wanted to point that out. And that's something that will probably get touched on in your presentation. So
yes,
excellent. Great. Well, it would be great to hear a little bit about your story before we dive into the main presentation. How did you get started with type design? And how did you find your way just getting interested in all these very somewhat esoteric, but then stuff we use every day, but kind of, you know, behind the scenes?
Yeah. So I started loving type when I was studying. Like I had a typography class, and I just keep doing it. And eventually, it started to be something that also gave me money. So I just kept doing it. And so here I am, like 11 years later. But I think the thing that got me here, which was to have fun and create new things, it's still here. So, yeah.
Very cool. I see a couple.
I'm glad you're still having fun.
Yes, that is important.
Yeah.
If you're going to do something for 11 years, it's important that it's fun. I see a couple of guitars behind you, maybe a bass as well. So I assume music is back there somewhere in your history as well.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe a little bit earlier than typography, but also started playing piano and then guitar.
Very cool.
And I love to play as well.
Awesome. Well, we'll have to discuss that further in another stream. We'll have the Adobe music stream, and we'll dive into all that. Well, are you down to dive into your presentation? And
Yeah. So.
yeah, and we'll have some Q&A at the end as well. So post questions in the chat. Ari and I will keep an eye on that during the presentation and ask any questions about font formats, etc. So take it away.
Okay. So once again, thank you. And I'll be here with you to talk about font formats, past, present, and future. So I will also be showing you some examples, especially variable font examples in the end. So stick and see it, what I'm going to show you. And the first thing that I would like to let you know, just as an introduction, is to make a distinction between typeface and font. And I know that most of the time we use these words interchangeably, and that's okay. But there's a difference, and for this thing that I want to show you, it's important to let you know. So a typeface is like the design itself, and the font is what delivers that design. So let me give you an example. Like the typeface is like a song, and a font is like the MP3 file, okay? So where does this leave us? If you have like a bad rep for the typeface, you won't be able to use it as efficiently. And I guess this is like the story of font formats. And I can jump in. So what you see here is like the same typeface in different formats. So on the left, you have like a vector design of the letter G, and on the right, there's like a bitmap version of it. And this is like a format. So a format conveys the design, and it can convey in a better way or in the not so better way.
Natanael, is this the same typeface in these two
exactly
examples?
The same typeface.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, of course, this on the right would be like for very old, low resolution displays.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like early 80s. But what's important is like the better the font format, the better designers are able to use the design, and the designer can express better its creativity. So yeah, in short, like a font format will try to give better performance and greater efficiency. And it could be like supporting additional features like ligatures, supporting multiple language on a single file, have better compression, so the file size is smaller. Okay, so and I can jump right into two font formats from the 80s, and it's type 1 and type 2, and they are PostScript font formats. So PostScript was like a revolution, and it was developed by Adobe. So it let designers have high quality text and graphics, and it was like device independent. So a lot of things started happening since this time. Along with the new Mac OS and PageMaker, we started having the first "what you see is what you get" experience for the editorial market. So we had like these two formats, and let me say also that these fonts were like scalable, which was like, now we are used to it, but it was at the time a revolution. So converting outlines to these Bezier curves, which are like a mathematical equation, and it lets you like scale indefinitely, and would give you a lot of high quality on print. And this also lets you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Does that mean that before you couldn't make them bigger and smaller?
Yeah, like you could, but not as easily. But especially on screen, you couldn't do it. You need to have like bitmap versions of the font on your screen.
Oh.
So
Okay.
you need to, so a designer would design like a 12 point version of Garamond, a 14-point version.
Right.
So,
Wow.
and this was like a revolution.
This kind of reminds me
Yeah.
of, you know, when you had a tape recorder and you could only record a stereo track, and then you had a multi-track recorder, so you could have 4
Yeah.
tracks, and then you had 8 tracks, and now we have 100 tracks, and we don't even think about it anymore. It's just as many as you want. But back then it was like 4 tracks. What? So
yeah. So yeah, to look and it wasn't so long ago. It's like 30, 40 years. It's interesting how things develop so fast.
yeah.
Yeah, so type 1 had like a superior quality comparing to type 3. And this was mainly because it supported inting. I will let you know in a minute what I mean by inting. And it also had a better compression. On the other hand, type 3 had more visual options, like you could use grayscale and even have a bitmap font. So it was a bit more versatile. So type 1 had better quality because of hinting. So what is hinting? Hinting is like the adjustment of the design to the pixel grid, so it looks sharp. This is especially important on small sizes. Obviously, nowadays, this is you don't notice this. This is all automatical. But this was also a revolution at the time again, because in small sizes you had the ability to adjust the design to the pixel grid, so you would not have like very dark parts and very light parts, and really the shape not really representing the design. So that was type 1 at hinting. So this make it superior format. Both of these formats had obviously some weaknesses, let's say it like that. So they were not cross-platform, okay? They had like 256 character limit per font. So if you wanted to have more characters in one font, you needed to create a new file. And they were also not so easy to use because you needed 2 separate files, a file for the design itself and a file for kerning and metrics. And after this,
We're so lucky.
I know, we really
today.
are. It's so
Yeah.
much easier now.
I just want to point that out. Also, Carol says, I remember when fonts were either for PC or Mac.
Exactly.
What a pain.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that not cross-platform, it's like if you were working on a Mac and then someone else was working on a PC, you couldn't use the same fonts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you had like a Mac and a PC, you would need to acquire like 2 licenses for the same design. So yeah.
Was there ever a type 2? Mike asked.
Yes, there was. And it was like it contributed to the origin of OpenType that we will talk afterwards.
Oh.
It's not here because it didn't really made its place in the market, but so it's not here. But there was a type 2. Okay, so afterwards, Apple and Microsoft wanted to compete with Adobe that had the type 1, and type 1 was dominating the market, and created the TTF, a new font format. And it had like a different scalable vector mechanism. Whoa, what does that mean? So I show you like the Bezier curves. It's basically similar, but they work in a different way. It's a different way to arrange the Bezier curves. And like TTF got a bad reputation, but it's undeserved. And this happens because a lot of designers started designing TTF, because at the time type 1 fonts were like exclusive. Type 3 was not, but type 1 was exclusive. And a lot of designers started designing for TTF, and were a lot of bad designs on the market. So TTF got this bad reputation. But if you see a TTF file, it doesn't mean that it is bad, okay? So I just want to say that. And it's still used today. It's a format that it's still used today. Okay. Then there was like a new format, which was called multiple master. And as the name say, it had multiple masters. What does that mean? So what happens was like you could have masters and then interpolate in between those masters. I will also explain that with an image in a minute. So you could interpolate instances. So these give you like many options. And even though the format today is obsolete, the technology prevailed, and it was like something that we will see in variable fonts in a different way. So it's interesting how things in the past, even though they might not work, they are like the first step for newer technology to happen.
That's so cool. So like an interpolated instance would be like if you had regular and bold and then you had a semi-bold. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good example. So if you look at this image that I have here, so there's only 4 masters. There's these like thin compressed and like black compressed, and then you have these extended black and extended thin, and you could have like 32 versions, 32 instances, only with 4 masters. So this is interpolated. So the Bezier points would be mathematically distributed and create these versions. So
can I interject for 1 second? I just want to welcome anyone who joined a little bit later, because we're in the weeds now about font formats, to say that we're exploring font formats from the past to the future, and we have our type designer and type educator, Natanael Gama, as our guest, who's taking us through this. He's in a live Illustrator file showing us slides. So further down the line, he's going to be doing things live in Illustrator to show off font features. But if you're watching us on YouTube, come over to Behance, because then you can participate in the chat. And keep saying hi. Tell us your questions in the chat. We're going to be answering them. We've had a few new people. We have Julieta, who is joining us and said bom dia. So I'm guessing she's from Portugal.
Bon dia.
And a few others. So welcome and keep saying hi in the chat.
Okay, so next font format, a format that most of us probably know, it's OpenType. So, and this was like the format that supersedes all the prior formats, like both Type 1 and TTF. And in a way, it's a combination of the best of those both formats. So OTF has a lot of advantage. It's platform independent. So like at the time, TTF was not platform independent. You need to have like TTF for Mac and TTF for PC. OTF presented itself like platform independent. It has like the support for advanced typographic features like contextual alternates, ligatures, small caps. So if you're familiar with OpenType features, that's what I'm talking about. It had like a much larger character support. So we're talking about tens of thousands. You know, if you compare to the 256 of Type 1, it's an incredible step forward. And it dominates the market. Like 90% of the fonts available are OTF. And now I would like to show some examples of an OTF font for someone who might not know. So as I said, OpenType fonts can have like a lot of glyphs, a lot of characters. So one thing that I like to do when I'm using a font is like just go to type and to the menu glyphs and see which glyphs are available. So here I'm using Adobe Caslon. And as I go down, I found out these ornaments. They are so beautiful. And these sometimes are like treasures that you're not used to, and you don't know that were here. So OpenType fonts can have like a lot of characters that in a first glance you don't see. And they also have, of course, a lot of OpenType features. For instance, this age is not the standard age. It's called a swatch version. So I have like activated here in my OpenType dialog the swatch icon. So if I take it out, it's like just a regular age. And so you have access to these options. And if you select like the font, like Illustrator gives you like the possible alternative characters for this letter.
What was that crazy one?
It's an ornament. It's probably just an easy way to access ornament.
Just write it like that and see if people can.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me just probably.
Ooh,
it
that's
doesn't have a
beautiful.
stylistic set, but okay,
I think a lot of people see Caslon and they're like, oh, this is just for text and it's not that, decorative. But look at all the features that you can make it into a beautiful headline.
Yeah, so and other features that you can have, like ligatures. We have like standard ligatures, which are ligatures that are important. So you see there's a collision with the F and the I. So these ligatures tend to be activated by default. But you can also have like discretionary ligatures, so that you should use with discretion. Okay, there are more like stylistic. You can have it or not. They don't make the text more or less legible. They are more like stylistic things that you could add to give some extra flavor to your designs.
I remember when I first started, trying to do design stuff just for fun, I would see these ligatures and I thought, oh, they took a font and then created outlines and then drew this themselves, and because I just didn't know that you could just turn on those ligatures and explore. So definitely worth checking that out. I spent far too much time trying to learn how to vector that CT, ligature myself, and it didn't look good. It didn't come out good. So
yeah, it's not
back
easy.
in the dark days, Ben, yes. Before you knew.
Before I knew.
Chico asked, is there any way to tell what format your fonts are when you're in the app? I think the answer is no.
No, actually, you do know. There's this icon here on the right of the.
Oh yeah.
So an O means OpenType, a T means TrueType, and a cloud thing means it's from the Adobe Cloud.
Cool.
Yeah, so the cloud icon means it's from Adobe Fonts, where all of the fonts included are either OpenType or TrueType. So, but exactly. Mostly OTF. I would say in the Adobe Fonts library, it's probably 85% are OTF, just to keep consistency. But if you have a burning desire to know what exact format the font is on Adobe Fonts, you can contact us and we'll tell you. But it shouldn't make a difference because you should have all the same features.
Yep.
Yeah. You shouldn't worry, like nowadays, you shouldn't worry too much about that. So let me just show you a little bit of the OpenType power. So now we're like to the more like smart features. So let me show you on this font what the L looks like. So this is an L. It has like this stroke going backward. But when I have like any character that would overlap that or have a collision with that, it changes automatically the letter after. So, and this is like the contextual alternates menu activated. If I deactivate, it will display these sort of collisions. And so I need to select. So all these smart things happening without you even noticing. And even the T now, it's like more stylistic when there are like lowercase, like without ascenders, the T gets this nice bar. But if it's like with an ascender, the T changes. Did you notice the change?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is all the smart versions.
So cool.
And here I have like the final version of the letter I select. And because this is a script, when we write, sometimes the last letter tends to extend a little bit. So this font emulates that with some final forms. Okay, so back to the presentation. I also want to talk briefly about web font formats. So back in the days, if you were in the website, in the web design business, like 10 years ago, more even, there was like web safe fonts. So you would design, but you couldn't embed like fonts on your website. You need to rely on fonts that the users have installed on their computers. So this is really a problem because there were very limited options. And even Foundries didn't let users embed fonts on their sites with fear of piracy and stuff like that. So web font formats started emerging. So they were like formats that were exclusive for the web or trying to be, so that you could not use them in desktop. So and some formats appeared like EOT, which means embed open type. And it had like an advancement which was like subsetting fonts. So if the font was too heavy, had a lot of languages or a lot of features, you could like just have the ones that you needed. That's what subset means. And also TTF and OTF were also always supported by browsers. And nowadays, this is like the standard. It's WOF. It's the format that is used for the web. So it has reduced the latency, and it's widespread. Everybody uses it. And now I come to the part which is like present, future, which is variable fonts, which is a new technology that all the big players started developing. And so variable font, I will show you like some real examples in a minute, but it has some advantage, like a smaller file size for a family, because it works a little bit like multiple master fonts. It just has the masters, and then the instances are generated as you need it in real time. So you don't need to store all the instances. You just need to store the masters. So I was making a calculation, and I have a font which has like 72 styles. It's a very big font family, and it weighs like 14 megabytes. But as a variable font, it weighs only 700 kbytes. So it's really a huge difference.
Could you say that again? Just those numbers again.
14 megabytes.
Yeah.
To 700 kbytes. So it's not even 1 megabyte.
Wow. That is a serious amount of savings in terms of space and delivery.
So and like differently from multiple masters, you have real-time instance control. So you don't need to generate and then use. You can like control it in real time, and this is like ideal for responsive design. And I will right away show you some examples of this. So here I have Acumin variable. If you want to know if you have variable font installed, you probably have. I just write var here on the search bar, And because most variable fonts have the name variable, you can see all the variable fonts you have available. And also the icon on the right changes. It has open type and it has the var, which stands for variable.
And those of you who are using Illustrator, for example, as we're using here, we have some fonts that Adobe has designed and are bundled in Illustrator. Acumen, Myriad Variable. So those are available for you to use. So you can just go straight in right now and search var and start using them.
Yeah. And how do you use them? Because if you notice, there's an extra icon that pops up here that you don't have in non-variable fonts. So it has like these two T's and a slider on the bottom. And if you press, you get this dialog where you can like control the variables of the font. So in this case, this font has like 3 variables or 3 axes, which are like weight, width, so it can go from compressed to extended. And it even has like a slant option. You can, and the magic of this is like in the past, you have like a thin, light, regular, semi-bold, bold, but now you have like 900 options. So you can have like, so you can fine tune your design in a wonderful way.
So you have 900 options versus, let's say, maybe 8.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
it's less than a tenth of the size of file size. I mean,
yeah,
far
exactly,
less.
exactly.
Super cool.
Yeah, so you can have a lot of options. So let me show you a different example. So here we have this font that has like optical size. So optical size is like different sizes for different uses. For instance, if you are like typing captions, you will use like a version with less contrast. But if you are typing like headlines, you can go like to very contrast versions, and this font supports that. And you can control these on the web with the CSS. So imagine like someone is watching on a large browser window, and then somehow it will just make it really small for some reason. You can adapt on the fly the font so it could be more legible. So you can control all these things in real time, which is amazing.
Rebecca says, so many options, it gets overwhelming. Do you have any advice of how to not be overwhelmed with all of these controls?
So I have a perfect solution for you. If you go right here, the normal versions you would find on an open type font are here. So the designers leave it for you. If you don't want to be scared about all these options, you can just I want a text in a book. Wait, it's here. No, I want a black display. Where is it? Display bold. So
if you click on display bold and then you go to the sliders, can you refine it from there?
Yeah.
Okay.
So display is the maximum optical size, and the weight bold is a bit after the middle.
Yeah, it seems. So, it seems like you can get some insights into what the typefaces were, what the different weights were designed for, by choosing them and then coming here and messing around and noticing those changes.
Exactly. And you can make like some minimal adjustments. Imagine that you are doing like branding and you say, oh, I just want this a little bit too bold, a little bit more bold, but the black is too much. So you just a tiny bit and it's full,
So cool.
Yeah.
I would also say if you have a project, like right now, this is very abstract because we're not designing a poster or a website or something. But if you have a poster that you're designing and you have a box that you need the type to fit in, this helps you so much. And you're not overwhelmed probably because you only have a certain restricted space. So
Yeah.
you just have to find how to fill that space the right way.
Yeah.
And it's probably makes it easier rather than too intimidating.
Yeah, that's a great point about, so I think this is a good way to not be so overwhelmed for me, is I let the constraints of the project decide what I pick or choose. So if I want a really big headline, then you choose a display face. If you want something small, you can choose caption or text or something along those lines, because you know it's going to be small. So it's almost like the end result can tell you what you should choose along the way. And nice thing about variable fonts is that you could choose something and then kind of tweak it to fit perfectly in what you need.
Yeah, and just like I'm finishing my presentation, and I want to just show you, like, once again, the power of variable fonts with something that I did. I designed this N, and it has like 5 variables.
Whoa.
So I have the variable weight, so it can go from thin to black. And I also have the tool, so now it looks like it was made with calligraphic things, so it has like this distribution of black, but I can make it more geometric, okay, if I want. And I can add serifs. Now the serifs are slab because I'm with the tool on a more geometric side. But if I change the tool to the other side, I get some old style serifs, okay? And you can also have optical size here and italics.
Wow.
This is so cool. This is going to make logo design so much easier because...
Yeah, and fun, you know?
Fun,
I think
yeah.
this will like really fun to work with.
Yeah. So how do you think, if multiple typefaces or all typefaces are like this in the future, how will that impact your business? Because, for example, you might create a sans family and then a serif companion family, and people will use both of those, and they have 10 weights each. What if that all just becomes one file?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
people can have all these possibilities? Like, will that disrupt your business, or do you think it will
it's
enhance
certainly
it?
more difficult to market, you know? Here is one file. It costs the same as the 72 files that you had before, and this is just
Yeah.
one. So it's certainly more difficult to market, but when you explain all the possibilities and the power that you have, I think people would be happy to just buy it regularly or use it in Adobe Fonts. So I think
Yeah.
I think as if people understand what it is, they won't have any problem, I believe.
That's true. It's really about educating people, and that's why we're trying to do this and show people how much we've evolved since, you said it was only about 40 years ago that we had the Type 1 format, and that was a new, exciting thing, and we've come so far. And someone in the chat said, "Oh, I understand why my teachers say I'm lucky now, because they had this experience." So
Exactly.
we're lucky now, but look how much further we can go with existing technology. So it's really exciting. I just wanted to answer a couple questions that came in. Ted asked, does the Adobe Fonts library have variable fonts? Currently, no. Variable fonts are not supported on the Adobe Fonts service, but that's something that we are really working towards.
Yep.
So for those of you that have a Creative Cloud subscription, the way that you can use variable fonts in your tools is to use the ones that are already bundled in the font menu. Like we mentioned before, we have a few Adobe originals like Myriad and Acumen that are variable versions that you can use in your tools. But you can also find variable fonts on, for example, vfonts.com, v-fonts.com. If you can link that, Cody, that has a huge repository of variable fonts, and a lot of foundries are creating them now. So you can go on their websites and find those, purchase them, and those are all compatible with these controls that are in the tool that Natanael just showed. So you can use them in our tools. And I think it's Illustrator and InDesign. Does Photoshop have this capability as well currently?
I don't know. Actually, don't know.
I don't want to say, I was going to say yes, but I don't want to say it if it's wrong. So someone in the chat, please tell me if you can do this in Photoshop as well. I should know. And I think there was one more question that I wanted to answer. Maybe that's it.
Cool.
But keep asking, guys. We have another 10 minutes. It's just amazing with this letter N how much control you can add. And I think everyone was really excited by that. We had people saying, wow, amazing, very swanky, holy cow, so cool. So everyone was really interested in seeing.
Yeah, I remember when I saw a variable font for the first time, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah, I feel the same. Whoa. That's exactly how I felt.
We've had a couple of questions about what app you use to create fonts. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so I use the Glyphs app. It's a Mac app. It's the one that I use, but there are other font editors that create variable fonts as well.
Yeah. So Glyphs, is that something you've been using for a while?
Yes, I almost since the start. I was an early adopter of Glyphs, so I've always used Glyphs. Other than like a few experiments before, I only have used Glyphs.
And in order to create variable fonts, can you do it all in Glyphs, or do you need a separate tool?
No, you can do it all in Glyphs. You don't need any extra tool to do it. You would need Adobe to test, Adobe software to test if everything is okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
You should always have Adobe software.
Yeah, it just makes everything easier. So.
And we also had Patrick, we have him in the chat, who is a type designer and one of our Foundry partners as well. And he's saying you can also use FontLab 7, you can use Glyphs. There's also Font Creator for Windows, FontForge as an open source app, which is cross-platform. Angela also recommended FontSelf, which is an Illustrator plugin that you can use, if you're just starting out. So there's a lot of options.
Yeah, I don't know if all those options support variable font design, but certainly can be an introduction to designing fonts.
Yes, definitely more of an intro.
That brings me to a question I wanted to ask about, earlier when you were getting into type design, when you were starting this journey and then deciding to start your own Foundry, did you hit any roadblocks or tough spots? And if so, what helped you kind of push through that and get to the next stage and keep going forward with it? And you've been having fun for 11 years. So but you probably hit a couple things, and we're glad you made it. So how did you make it?
Yeah, so I think it's inevitable to find some roadblocks and stuff that doesn't go so well. For instance, when you publish a font and you are placing all your trust on that, and then it's not popular, people don't use it, people don't buy it, it's kind of frustrating. But then you just keep moving on and you keep designing. And like to have the support of fellow graphic designer friends that love to use your font, it's so good, and obviously keeps you moving.
That's a great point. I think for all new designers, finding a group of people that you trust their taste and they're learning with you and learning, having some of the same possibly struggles, or maybe they've already had those and they can help you, and all that good stuff it's great to have a small community of people who understand what you're working on and using. So
yeah,
awesome. I put the links to Natanael's Instagram and Twitter on the screen, and also Behance. That is a very good-looking Behance filled with lots of fantastic examples. So well worth checking out and following there as well. So check that out.
Yes, follow him.
Yes, please.
And we put a.
Oh, I'm doing it the wrong way.
we have also on our live streams previously. You mentioned optical sizes, and we had a previous stream with Frank Grieshammer about optical sizes that you can find on our Behance page if you want to dive more into optical sizes and kind of understand what you would choose for which project. That might help it be a little bit less overwhelming with all those options and all those different font formats. So that's something worth checking out. So what's next?
Yeah.
What's next in terms of typefaces and variable fonts, and what are you working on currently, and what are you excited about?
Yeah, so it's a bit difficult to say what's in the future. There are many options, like color font. It's something that can happen, you know, and should designers also include emojis on their fonts? You know, there are so many questions, and like with all these new currencies happening, like cryptocurrencies, should designers also design the symbol of those currencies? I like to think about the future of type design, and all these questions come in. I personally, I've been focusing more on like very stylistic things that satisfy me as a designer. I'm not doing like any big projects at the moment, so I'm just focusing on more display things at the moment.
Okay, kind of exploring more intricate, detailed things.
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool. Also, I wanted to ask about web fonts, just to get your general take. I feel like web fonts had their this very exciting explosion day in the sun, and then they're not quite the most exciting thing that everyone's talking about now. I think variable fonts are becoming a thing that everyone's excited about. However, variable fonts certainly will help web fonts improve because the file sizes will be smaller and you'll have all of these options within CSS. But I'm just curious if where you see web fonts playing a role in the next year or two, and do you see them becoming even more useful in the next couple of years?
I mean, absolutely. Like web fonts were a revolution on the web. Like I remember in the early days before type design, I remember I did some websites, and you had to use like images if you want to have some personality to the websites. And to look now that all these rich web fonts available everywhere, like making the websites so beautiful. And to say again that like the format WOF supports variables. So most nowadays browsers, if you have the latest version, you can have already variable fonts there and play with the variables of that font in the browser. So variable fonts and web fonts are not separated things. They are the same thing in a way.
So cool. Well, plenty to look forward to. Very exciting stuff to come. If you have more questions, tweet us, follow us, find us. You can follow us on Behance at Adobe Fonts and find us on Twitter. We will answer your questions if you tweet us for sure, and send us feedback. Let us know what you thought of the presentation and of this stream. And if you like this sort of thing, follow us on Behance. We stream there as well for Adobe Fonts related stuff. And if you want to check out and find out more about the fonts available from Natanael on our site, you can check out his Foundry page on our site, and definitely some awesome stuff to find there. And you know, it's one click to activate stuff, so go to town, experiment with that, check out variable fonts, see what you have already installed in Illustrator. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Natanael, again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
This was fantastic.
Yeah, it was a pleasure.
Yes, thank you. It was great to meet you and have you on, and great to have all of our friends in the chat. Thanks for all your questions and cheering us on. We see a lot of people enjoyed it. So feel free to send the replay to your friends. It's going to be on YouTube.
Absolutely.
Forever. So you can send it away to everybody and educate them about how lucky they are to use OpenType features.
And soon lucky to use variable fonts everywhere. So
Yes.
awesome. Well, we'll have you back again at some point, and thank you again. What a fantastic fantastic
Thank you so
presentation.
much.
Thanks
Thank you so
everybody.
much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.